I've been using the iPhone Air for the last 2 weeks, and I have a lot of thoughts and a lot of feelings about it. Spoiler alert, it's mostly positive, but there is some negative, and I don't know that it's what you think it is. While we have good light, let's talk about how this phone has been holding up. I've been using this phone without a case the entire time, which is new for me. With my iPhone 16 Pro, I had a case and a screen protector on it like 98.7% of the time. Now there are some good cases for this phone, but it kind of feels wrong to add any bulk to this. The phone looks pretty much the same as it did out of the box. I did originally have the black iPhone Air, but I switched to the white one because it just shows up better on camera, and if it gets any sort of scratches on it, it's kind of tricky to see them. Now if you're looking at the phone under specific light and specific angles, you can see some scratches around here all the way up to here, which is from the rivet of the front pocket of my jeans. I put my phone in my front pocket with the screen facing out, so I've been trying to be a little careful not to have the rivets rub against the back, but I'm also not trying to completely baby this phone. So those scratches kind of suck, but because it's the white phone, I don't really see them, so it's okay. One thing I'm pretty interested to do is to put a skin on the back of this phone, which would help with scratches and also let me customize the phone to a certain degree. When I do that, I'm pretty sure I'll make a video about it, so subscribe if that's something you're interested in seeing. So I have a lot more to say, but I need to pack up my stuff. I'm losing this filming space for about a week, so I'll be what I call a mobile creator. Basically just putting together content wherever I can, most likely in coffee shops. So I'm gonna grab my iPad Pro, a camera when I'm done with it, an SD card reader, 2-meter charging cable, Minimag power bank, and a Flexline charging adapter. Battery life on the iPhone Air has been super impressive, but I have been able to push it pretty low a couple of times. I love having the freedom to take my tech wherever I want and not having to worry about plugins. So that means making sure that I have a power solution that can top up my iPhone as well as my iPad if needed. The Minimag power bank is super slim, 5,000 milliamp hours, and charges at 7.5 watts wireless and 18 watts wired. The back is also aluminum and durable, so it makes it perfect for just tossing into my bag and not having to worry about it. Now, if I do end up being near an outlet, then this Flexline adapter has been perfect. It can output up to 67 watts, which can charge my phone to 65% in 30 minutes, has a 1-meter retractable cable, and has a USB-C out so I can charge up to 2 devices at the same time. Now, I'm normally pretty skeptical of things that retract, but internally Torres is using aerospace grade alloys and has put this through a lot of tests to make sure that it's going to last a long time. I'm a fan of how small this is for 67 watts of output. To pull that off, it uses GaN technology and is paired with dual cooling chips, which has been impressive to see how cool this stays while it's charging even my MacBook Pro. If you'd like to pick either of these up or learn more about them, I'll leave a link in the description so that you can check it out. All right, so we're all packed up. Let's head out to a coffee shop and continue our conversation about the iPhone Air. So after using this phone for just shy of 2 weeks, I still love it just the same as I did the first day. Is it perfect? No. But as they say, there's beauty in imperfection. Even after this time, it still feels like I'm picking up the future of smartphones when I go to pick this up. I can't really shake the feeling that this feels more premium to use than the iPhone 17 Pro Max. It's a little embarrassing to admit, but there is this little part of me with using this phone out in public where I'm hoping that others will notice just how thin and cool looking this phone is and want to have a conversation about it. But I don't think most people notice or really care. Though actually now come to think of it, there was one time where I sold something to somebody and he noticed and wanted to hold the phone and was so surprised at how premium it felt compared to his 17 Pro. So I did get that moment and it was fun to talk about the phone with somebody else who had the same passion for iPhones and smartphone technology. Now there was one day where I went to use the 17 Pro Max, kind of in the middle of this whole experience, kind of in the way that you would smell coffee beans after you smell perfume, just to kind of get that contrast and reality check of like, do I love the iPhone Air so much that I'm willing to overlook it for this amazing battery-packed phone? And look, there's no denying that the 17 Pro Max has amazing battery, but I don't know, something about the way this phone looks and feels is just not quite as premium as the iPhone Air. And in comparison, this feels like a gigantic brick when you're using it. Yeah, that just feels so much better. One of my favorite updates to the iPhone this year has been the 3000 nits of brightness under the sunlight. And after 2 weeks, I haven't had the display dim on me once. So here's hoping that continues. One of the biggest questions I'm sure you're here to find out is what's been my experience with the battery? And in short, it's been really good. I mentioned it before, but Apple did a really poor job marketing the battery life on this phone. It's the same battery rating as the iPhone 16 Pro, but they decided to put a battery bank in the presentation seconds after saying that it's all day battery. During these 2 weeks, I haven't changed my habits with my phone at all. So I haven't just been pulling it off of a charger and seeing how far it'll go without touching power throughout the whole day. I'm doing normal things like getting in my car and connecting it to a vent mount for navigation, or connecting it to Apple CarPlay in my other car, because that's just what most people will normally do with their phones. So let's go through a handful of days so you can kind of get an idea of what it's been like for me. So on September 21st, I had 4 hours and 29 minutes of screen on time, a little bit of a charge there around noon, probably driving around, and the phone ended off around 43%. On the 22nd, 4 hours and 17 minutes of screen on time. I'm at home most of that day, not really using my phone, so that's why you've kind of got these dips. It goes on a charger while I'm probably doing some stuff with my family, and then using the phone a bit throughout the afternoon. On the 23rd, 6 hours and 15 minutes of screen on time. This was definitely a day where I was kind of lazy, didn't charge my phone until I was doing stuff throughout the day, and it was fine, ended above 50%. The day after that is more of a normal day, 3 hours and 56 minutes of screen on time, starting around 100%, ending off around 50%, and that's a day where I'm dropping my kid off at preschool. The 25th, 5 hours, 43 minutes of screen on time, starts around 100% around midnight, peters off down to probably around 30% by just around supper time, and then I charged it up at night when I was doing some editing. Now the 26th was one of my heavier days, 5 hours 26 minutes of screen on time and doing some more intensive activity on the phone. So we didn't start the day at 100% and we ended down around 20%, as you can see, because we're in low power mode. So a little bit of that's on me for not really starting the day at 100%. Now on the 27th, that's when I switched to the iPhone 17 Pro Max, so you're not really seeing much activity here. And that was just to give kind of an A/B, like I said, that coffee smelling experience, so I could see how the battery was going back to the iPhone Air. And so the 28th is on a Sunday where, again, I'm with my family, not really using the phone quite as much, and the battery was totally fine. Ended off just under 50%. And then after that, 5 hours 40 minutes on Monday, you can kind of see the experience there. Tuesday, 4 hours 53 minutes, some pretty decent usage, but I think I was at home doing some filming and editing, so didn't really use the phone all that much. Wednesday, 5 hours 30 minutes of screen on time. Again, the phone does really well here. And then so far today, 3 hours 21 minutes, and we're doing pretty good here. We're at 78% while I'm filming this, and we started off at 100% at 5 in the morning. Now the reason I'm missing some of the days on September 20th is because I was using the black iPhone Air and I forgot to take screenshots. But my battery experience on those days was pretty similar to what I'm showing you here. So I would say if you're the type of person that starts your day at 100% and uses your phone going forward, then you should be fine. And this is a bit of a take I've seen online, but if you need more battery than what the iPhone Air provides you, which is the same again as the 16 Pro, then maybe you're on your phone too much. Just a thought. But I also get it, if you do a lot of work on your phone, then for sure, get a 17 Pro Max, because that battery is going to help you a lot throughout the day. But maybe you're the type of person who is really bad with charging habits and needs a phone that just goes and goes and goes, then the 17 Pro Max is for sure going to be a better option for you. Now, the interesting part about this having the same battery as my 16 Pro is that maybe 2 months ago when I had my 16 Pro and the battery I felt was kind of mid, I told myself that I was going to get the 17 Pro Max and that was going to be my daily phone, because I was tired of having to deal with the battery on my 16 Pro. But when you use a phone that feels like this, it kind of changes your mind. The way I think about this phone within the context of all the iPhones that are out this year is that this is kind of the sports car of the iPhones. So hear me out. When you're driving a sports car, let's say a Lamborghini, you're driving it because it looks awesome and you get a premium experience when you just go super fast. So you could spend significantly less and get a car that goes a further distance, is more comfortable to drive, holds more, but is it the same experience as a Lamborghini that costs an absurd amount of money? No. So to me, that's the iPhone Air. You're paying a bit more than you should for what it provides you specs-wise, but the experience that you get holding and using this phone is something that you don't get from any other iPhone. Another thing that people will point out is that this only has one camera, which is kind of limiting. But again, that kind of comes down to your specific use case. For me, even if I'm using this phone, I would use the main camera probably 80 to 90% of the time. Like say on my 16 Pro, if I ever did zoom, I was normally just punching into the 2x where it crops into that main sensor, because the quality that you get from that sensor is unmatched by all the other sensors on that 16 Pro phone from last year. Now, after this experience, I'm going to be switching over to the 17 Pro Max and using the cameras on that phone. So I'm looking forward to using those cameras more and seeing if that changes my mind and my perspective around using more than just the main camera on my phone. Since macro mode was introduced on the Pro phones, one thing that I've really missed is my minimum focus distance on a phone. Like for example, if I'm taking a picture of this decorative table element, this is as close as I can get focally. If I try and do that on the 17 Pro Max and I tell it to not use the macro lens, you can see here that it's blurry. And I actually have to go back to about here to get the same crisp quality. So I know that that's a super niche thing to call out, but that's part of the experience that I've really enjoyed with using this camera. Now, the majority of the time I'm taking pictures with my phone, it's either of my kids or it's just random stuff that I'm seeing, say at a grocery store when I'm out and about, sending that to my wife or to my friends. And if I ever want to take really good pictures of something, then I just bring a real camera with me because you just cannot get the same look from a smartphone. So for me, this main lens with a 2x punch-in has been good. And if I need to zoom in more, I have 2 feet and I can just zoom with my feet, as they say. Now, I have a question for you. Did you know that this phone actually has an ultra-wide camera on it? So I was dropping off a bunch of stuff to a local creator named Davey Gravy, and he was showing me that the front camera on the iPhone Air is actually an ultra-wide camera. And it's true, the front-facing camera on the iPhones this year is an actual ultra-wide camera. Here's an example. If I take a picture of my coffee and my pastry from this local coffee shop, here's the result I get with the rear camera. And then keeping the phone in the same general height and flipping it over, here's the result I get from the front-facing camera. So if you have an open mind to it, this phone has a main, a telephoto, and an ultra-wide camera. Another thing people comment on is the top speaker being the only speaker, and really, it's fine. Most of the time if I'm listening to something from my phone, I'm wearing my AirPods, and if I'm playing something out loud, it's usually just a song for my kids, and it doesn't need to sound immaculate coming from my phone. I've also seen the complaints of the speed of the USB-C port on here, and I don't know, for me it's fine. I charge my phone when I go to bed. I don't transfer things physically through a cable from my phone to my computer. I just airdrop them over. So sure, you can be upset at Apple for putting a 2.0 USB-C port in here, but if it gives you the result of getting to carry around a phone that's this thin, then you can give me that slow charging port any day. So on YouTube and Threads, I made a post saying that I was going to be putting this video together and asked if anybody had questions about my experience using the Air. So here are some of the questions that you asked. Sunday5248. Does it have a weaker vibration motor or is it the same as the Pros? So let's test it out. So holding them in my hands, they feel pretty similar, but I would give a bit of an edge to the 17 Pro Max. I especially noticed that it's a little stronger if the phone is placed face down and I have my hand on it compared to the iPhone Air. I can still feel the Air. The 17 Pro Max just has a little bit more oomph to it. And maybe that's because there's more space in the body and the body of the phone is able to vibrate a little more. Logan Fisher 2700 asks, is it the same video playback time as the 16 Pro? Is there a noticeable difference, good or bad, from the battery? I would say the experience is very, very similar to what I was getting with my iPhone 16 Pro. Getting to the end of the day, and if I'm really pushing the phone, I'll need to top up kind of around supper time. But really for me, if I'm pushing my phone hard, I'm doing video editing, social media, cruising, posting, thumbnail editing, and at that point, a lot of that stuff is just a better experience to do on something with a bigger screen like my iPad or my Mac. So that can really come down to convenience. If my son happens to fall asleep on my lap when I'm giving him a bottle, then if my phone's there and I need to do a little bit of tweaking on a thumbnail, I'll just use my phone. And then over on Threads, Geek Etc. asked, is it worth it in the sense of what's the real benefit in feeling/space to have such a thin phone compared to a regular? And to me, that kind of comes back to that sports car analogy. I think the benefit that you gain with this phone is the feeling you get from using it and experiencing it daily. It's an irreplaceable experience that you don't get when you're using something so massive and big, even though parts of the experience you get here are superior. For me, the big benefits are that this phone is super light, super small. So if I'm throwing it into my pockets on my shorts, I barely notice that it's in there. Fits into all my pants without creating much bulge. If I was wearing a suit, which I rarely ever do, this would fit way better in a suit and be less conspicuous than a huge phone like the 17 Pro or Pro Max. I think the battery in here is adequate. And if that maybe isn't so adequate for you, the way you could think about this is forcing you to be a little more aware of what's going on in the world around you and not live so much in your phone, unless that's something that's part of your job. I love technology, but the fact that people have their faces buried in their phones so often does kind of drive me crazy sometimes, especially at concerts and other live events. And maybe that's because I'm old and I grew up in an era where we didn't have smartphones at concerts and we all just got passionately involved in that event, that I wish we could kind of go back to that. Maybe it's a little obvious, but that's something I've been reflecting on a little bit more lately. And then when it comes to the limitations, quote unquote, of the camera, I think there's two different coins of thought there. While I think it's really great to have a powerful set of cameras in your pocket, when you're taking pictures with a dedicated camera, you're putting more thought and intention behind what you're doing. I don't think there's a right or wrong train of thought there. It's all kind of just personal preference, and that's just my perspective on it. Anyway, I'm kind of getting off track there. One other thing I do want to kind of go back to is using this phone with a case or without a case. Now, even though I haven't been using a case on this phone, I do have a bunch of them at home that I'm gonna test out and be posting videos about that. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure you subscribe because I'll be posting more videos about that over the coming weeks. Day to day though, I think I'm still gonna go without a case. What I might try though is putting a skin on it and see how I feel about that, because that can kind of give you some interesting customization options and keep the phone super slim while preventing me from scratching it more. So while I do really love using the iPhone Air, I am going to be switching over to the 17 Pro Max for the next 2 weeks so I can put together a video about my experience and my thoughts using this phone, especially coming from the perspective of having used the iPhone Air. So with the idea that video is extra enticing, also, subscribe so you don't miss it. Also, be sure to follow Davey because he has a lot of great iPhone content coming out from the perspective of a photographer and a videographer. All right, thanks for hanging out with me. Consider subscribing, give the like button a gentle tap, and I'll see you again. Okay, time to get some beautiful B-roll. Yikes.